Farzad has a bachelor degree in electrical engineering, a master's degree in mechatronics engineering from IAU, and a project management from McGill University. He's an industry expert who has served a diverse clientele in various verticals, focusing on smart facilities, IoT, and AI solutions. Farzad has extensive experience working in several international companies such as GE and Siemens, where he worked as a sales and business development manager. He is currently a VP Sales and Partnership at Eagle AI and tremendously contributed to the company's growth. Thanks, Farzad. Go ahead.
Okay, again, good morning, everybody, and thanks for having you here. It's a pleasure to be in. A special thanks to Dr. Mortazavi to give me the opportunity to be here and kind of share my story with Eagle AI, where we started, what are the challenges that we faced over the past 5 years, and then where we are in our success path. So as we collaboratively work with my cousin, and they're supporting our business from a hardware perspective. So our goal is really to make another unicorn company founded by Persians or Iranians, and make another success story in Canada. We've got still a long way to go, but this is really the plan. So I start kind of telling you a little bit about my background and where I started. So my background is working for GE and Siemens for a number of years as an engineer. I don't like to do engineering work, I'll be honest with you. I always wanted to be front-facing with clients. This is part of my personality. That's why I gave a PhD and said, you know, business is far more, you know, joyful, you know, for me, as well as a client-facing, you know, type of job. So when I was with GE, I had the chance to work with several different verticals in Canada, working with retailers, almost every single retailer in the country, with manufacturing facilities, with government entities, pretty much 7, 8 different verticals. And basically I met our CEO, our founder of Eagle, 10 years ago in a party. We started talking together. He was at Chrysler, so we start sharing our story, what I do and what he do, and then basically I tried to sell him something, as the nature of a salesperson is, and we start collaboratively working together. And what we utilize, you know, as a terminology, we used to date almost every month for several years up until 2019. So if I want to be precise, we used to go to St. Louis Tuesday nights, half price wing, and that's what we got, you know, belly fat because of the beers and the wings that we had for several years. And the idea was we work together and try to find what's the next big thing in the industry, what the industry is going, what are the directions, and how we can potentially work together. I come from IoT background, he comes from energy background. Obviously, the biggest challenge that we all face is the fact that you really need a big capex from an infrastructure standpoint. Every company that wants to invest and deploy any IoT solution, you have to, you know, deploy several thousand, if not, you know, hundreds of thousands of sensors, especially, you know, companies that have over 100 locations across, you know, the globe. We figure out, okay, this is not feasible, so we have to really look for something that help us and then leverage existing assets in the company. So AI was something that we were looking, and cameras in general and in particular was something that we landed as just the first initial idea about what the future would look like. So what happened was every company now has cameras, you know, pretty much no matter where you go. There are dark cameras that we believe that they are mostly underutilized because you utilize them for a forensic, and then if something happens, you go back, you know, to see what was the recording, try to investigate, you know, the incident. So what we are going to do, and that's like 5 years ago, we're going to leverage those images, run real-time analytics, push the stats into our dashboard, and then provide, you know, some stats and analytics to our client that they can benefit from it. So out of those companies that I've worked in the past, obviously we were thinking of retail, supply chain, potentially government, you know, there was like a 5 or 6 different verticals that we kind of crunched the numbers. And this was really the beginning of the Eagle, the journey. So what I'm going to show you in the next few slides, I'm going to talk about, you know, the challenges that we faced, and then basically how pivoted, you know, along our journey towards something else. We still have the core business as AI and machine learning, but you know, the use cases and the verticals that we're working are now narrow, and then basically narrowed down to only 1 or 2, as opposed to like 5, 6, 7, 8 that we had in the mind, you know, 5 years ago. So see, there's 3 stages into the startup: ideation, growth, expansion. You know, some of the things that I'm going to talk will overlap with my cousin. So the ideation is, I'm sure you know, every single of you have idea. Like, raise a hand if you've got 5 brilliant ideas that you think works. There you go. You've got one, everybody's got, exactly. Especially, you know, when we come to Canada as land of opportunity, US used to be a land of opportunity, now Canada is the second, right? Basically, everybody's got an idea, but we all maybe know, you know, how we can deploy that idea, maybe don't. You know, this is something that we should, over time, work on it and try to leverage some of the resources that we have in hand in order to deploy that idea. Then, once we do the ideation, this is basically comes down to the feasibility study. So first step is, why am I doing this? How am I going to do this? What are we going to do? When are we going to do it? And where are we going to do it? So these are the 5 questions that you have to answer. You have to have a solid answer when you start the company, especially at the ideation phase. So once we have resources basically allocated into our idea, then you have to have a projection and planning, right? So this is the point A that I'm starting. That's where I'm going to get like 6 months from now, and that's where I'm going to get 12 months from now. The growth phase is where you actually have some clients. I mean, everybody's coming from a company, from a vertical, from a history, a job. We all know that, okay, I got 2 people that I know, and let's just start with them and try to sell them the idea as like a proof of concept, or the something that, you know, the client can potentially use our technology and benefit from it. You get a small check for what you are doing. So basically, once we have those checks in place and then we prove the concept, you go to the next phase, which is basically expanding your business. So imagine, you know, you start a car with 100 horsepower. Now in the car is actually have 3 other wagons or 5 other wagons. You're no longer like 5,000 pounds, you're like 50,000 pounds. You need like 500 horsepower, 1,000 horsepower to move this vehicle. So now this is the plan that you're actually looking to adding, you know, resources. And when I'm saying resources, those that are first trustable, and then secondly, they're adding to your growth plan. So, which is in line with your value prop. So in all of these, we really have to have a clear value proposition to our client, that they benefit from the technology that you're selling. So there are basically 3 pillars to establish a company. So like I said, value prop, then you understanding, you know, what is the gap in the market, and I'm particularly feeling that gap. One of the biggest challenges in the startup industry is mindset, right? And then the growth mindset. You start with something and you think that works, you start the pilot, it actually didn't work, so now what? Are you going to just give up? No, that's not the way it works. Now you'll have to pivot towards something, your lessons, right? The lessons that you learned from your failures. Clients always, you know, give you feedback. This is the opportunity for you to fine-tune your idea, to fine-tune your path about, okay, I started from point A, now it's getting basically to an obstacle. This is not going to work out because, you know, some of the things that we were thinking is going to be a benefit, it's no longer a benefit to the client. So that's the market need. We call it feasibility study, right? And you basically start the company, you do this extensive research about what's needed in the company, and basically what's the gap in the company. Then secondly, you look into your major differentiation. For example, in our work, AI is nothing new, right? But our niche was privacy, so how we can tackle the privacy part. So how I could differentiate myself from another, software company that is trying to sell a similar solution than me. So how I can, play around with words. It's all words, and then when you basically deploy words in your actual deployment, that comes reality. What we do with cameras, PII, or personal identifiable information, is the biggest challenge in our industry, especially in the retail and supply chain, because when the client, look into what you do, then they would challenge you, oh, you're taking images from my clients, customers, employees, what are you going to do with it? So part of our patent was, when we do the people detection and the recognition, this is going to be kind of understanding and identifying, the whole body as a person, and not particularly looking at the face, as an example. And then lastly, you look into the founding members, and basically in order to establish a company, you really need a strong team of leadership, strong team of sales and marketing, strong team of operations to fulfill those orders, legal, finance, and basically you put together this team in order to work for you. This is not something that you can do. One man can start the company, but one man cannot continue the company. This is what I'm saying. So you touched a little bit, different sources of funds. These are 8 different sources that I put together. From our standpoint, really number 3, number 7, and number 8 are the ones that actually you really need to have a sustainable, business. More importantly, in Ontario, the OCI, which it used to be Ontario Centre of Excellence, now renamed to Ontario Centre of Innovation, is helping, alongside with IRAP, is helping any research and development type of startups with their initial phase of funding, their research development costs. Because that you bring a scientist, it's not going to be cheap, right? Scientists are not getting $20,000 a year or $40,000 a year. So you'd have to be able to afford having someone that is bringing, a value to your company. And more importantly, not saying that you have to have a patent in your business, but if you have a patent, you potentially are protecting your business, setting your business for failures, because somebody else will steal your idea, and potentially they would do exact same thing that you're doing if you don't file a patent. But these are different sources of funds, but we can discuss about this right after this session. And you get to unicorn and all of the big. I'm starting really like on the bottom. So basically, you've got different stages in the startup. Initial phase of the startup would be the pre-seed, where you don't have any money, and then basically it's just the ideation phase, and then you're trying to tap the market and test water to see how the market works. So in this phase, that's where you're looking for angel investors, you're looking for friends, family, somebody that fund your project and basically make it, happen, at the initial phase. Then once you successfully pass that phase and you have multiple contracts with companies that, and in the startup business, especially, the year that we're living, 2024, it's all about ARR, annual recurring revenue. Now, how you can basically kind of bring more revenue and have accumulation of revenue that could exponentially, growth. You look into like companies like Dropbox, or any companies like Apple, Google, and these are all the companies that are working off of, and living off of the AR. We used to buy AutoCAD license for like $100. Now you'd have to pay $100 a year or $40 a year, right? So this is basically the different mentality that's happening. So the more ARR you have, and the basically a solid foundation and the solid projection you have for your ARR, you're going to attract more investors and VCs that are going to back up your business, because they see the potential in your business. And I put it very small because I really wanted to talk about the the three definitions that usually in the startup work, you know, and in front of the VCs that you need to utilize. It's TAM, SAM, and SOM. So total addressable market, serviceable addressable market, and serviceable obtainable market. So a clear definition of where you're going with your idea. This is going to have an answer for this. So for example, in our market, the total addressable market is around, you know, $100 billion. Serviceable addressable market is about $10 billion, and what we're trying to achieve is $1.5 billion, which is serviceable obtainable market. So basically, this alongside with the sales cycle is going to define what your startup is going and then what you're going to be in like 2 or 3 years, 5 years from now.
What was the last one?
SOM, S-O-M, serviceable obtainable market. Basically, this is where you're trying to get. So I say, I'll get like a 20% of this. I get, 50% of this market. So it depends on, you know, how your competition are doing. This is basically is going to help you to get that.
Excuse me, this should come from the market research, yeah?
Absolutely. Market research, you know, there are certain resources that you can, you know, utilize to get those numbers. Yeah. And those numbers always has to be part of your initial business plan, because along the way you can polish this, right? So where we started was something completely different. Although we wanted to do vision and analytics and all that, but what we're doing today is completely different because we had to polish this along the way to a real world example. And that came from a direct conversation that we had with our clients, explaining, hey, this is what we have done for you. What else we can do for you, right? What are your challenges? So this is coming straight from the client, and then you go back and build the solution for you. So in other words, you sell the solution and then you start to building, you know, the solution.
So what's the difference between serviceable and addressable?
So serviceable and addressable is like the biggest market. It's like a micro view, like including, well, let's say we do vision, may ask, let's say occupancy monitoring, what else we can do with AI, right? Particularly in all solution. Serviceable is something that you have access. So for example, we're in North America, our target market is only in North America. So our basically addressable would be, serviceable would be North America. Addressable would be around the globe, right? So this is going to be. So now some of the challenges. You start the idea, there's no demand. That's a reality, right? You bump into an obstacle, the client, or it doesn't work, right? So you think your idea works, you put it in place, but it doesn't work. It happened to everybody, right? You have limited funding resources. And marketing is very important. So I cannot emphasize enough and stress enough about the brand recognition and brand awareness. So when you have a startup, nobody knows you, right? Because it's here. When you start, you know, spreading the words, people start knowing you, right? When you keep doing this every single event, not for a month, not for 6 months, for 5 years, for 3 years, now everybody knows your brand, right? So Dropbox, Uber, nobody knows 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Although Dropbox, yes, but Uber, right? 10 years ago they started, almost 2013, 2012. So now everybody knows because of the brand. So we have to be very cautious of how are we doing effective marketing. Otherwise we're going to lose the game to our competition. And then basically looking at one of the other important is financial management. So whoever is running a startup, they don't often, because we are all engineers and we are tech savvies. Usually accountant wouldn't run the company, right? Because they don't have probably the mindset that we have. But you really need someone that is good with numbers. So have the chart, have projection, look into, okay, I've got, let's say, X amount of dollars. I'm going to spend it in marketing wisely. I'm going to spend it in sales wisely. I'm going to spend it in operation when I need it, not necessarily at first phase, but eventually that's happening, you know, when you have like when you have the startup in a growth mode. And then funding, right? I mean, funding is very important. We all love to have a self-efficient and a self-sufficient, you know, company, but that's not happening in reality. You need someone or some VCs or angel investors to back your company in order to get to the point that past the 5 years or 10 years mark that you can be completely self-sufficient. And then hiring right people, and then the leadership is very important for every startup. I don't know how much time I have. 5 minutes?
5 minutes.
Yeah, so this is interesting facts. I mean, kind of contradicts with one cousin, said that basically based on my research, 90% of startup fails, because this is probably like the whole startup, from the ideation phase. And then the tech startups have like an 80% failure rate, and even the VCs, when they're investing money, 1 out of 4 will survive the first 5 years. Pretty much, all the others, go bankrupt. And then basically these are 5 different things that you need to do to make in order to survive for the first 5 years. So we pretty much touched most of this, but one of the things that is important is customer focus and adaptability. So to my point earlier, when you deploy something, it's amazing. It's a wonderful opportunity for you to start asking questions. Is my solution working for you? Is it something that you were expecting? Is it something that we can do it better? What are the gaps? How do we can help you with some other stuff? So this is exactly what we have done with one of our largest clients. This is 2-3 years ago when we deployed first solution. We kept having whiteboard sessions. We invite the directors and VPs and a leadership team to our office, or we go to their office. Just tell us what are your problems. This is really cutting down your feasibility study, or in other words, it will prove that your feasibility study works. So, and it's still working. That's important to understand. And then the other thing is, for us as a startup that does vision, it's very important that you don't set yourself for failures, because we're dealing with tier 1 clients, companies that are $1 billion worth over $100 billion. If you, let's say you have a privacy assessment, if you fail to do your privacy assessment, your legal review, then you set yourself for failure 2 years down the road, because there could be a lawsuit against your company that say, oh, you took advantage of our data. And this could be very tricky, and this could be super risky for companies that are starting, a business, especially working with big conglomerate companies. And yeah, as an ending, Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba, he says, today is difficult, tomorrow is more difficult, the day after tomorrow is beautiful. Most people die tomorrow evening. Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions?
That's a good question.
Sure.
Thank you for your beautiful presentation. You mentioned that you have to talk to the customer. But if you have a customer, it's easy because you can go through and invite. But if you are startup and you don't have any customer, how can you encourage them to come, sit, and talk to you? What's your advice?
Great question.
Thank you.
So that's, if you remember what I said earlier about the team, right, and your resources. The team that you put together, you have to make a strategic decision that bringing people on board that they have network already. So essentially, you don't really start boiling the ocean with your idea, because the ocean is very big and not going to get you anywhere. So what's happening is you bring people that they have already like 2-3 potential clients. That's going to basically expedite it or facilitate the conversation much easier. You're absolutely right. If you have nobody on board and then you want to start talking, it's very difficult. That's probably one of the most challenging part of running a startup. Just talking and acquiring first to 5 of your first clients. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you projected some ambitious numbers before your cousin's presentation. So my question is a unicorn, no matter what kind of unicorn it is born by design or it's by incident?
Good question. So I think personally, I think it's a combination of both. So basically, your idea should have a solid foundation that yes, this is an idea that's going to get you to 1.5 or $1 billion, which is the valuation of a unicorn. However, luck, right? I mean, you might as well, have the market, climate that will help you to accelerate to get to that point or a lot faster, or the market climate would be basically against you. So you go to a recession, So for example, COVID was good for us. Many clients, suffered from COVID. COVID was really good that we've been able to pivot, towards COVID and helping our clients and acquire almost 30 something companies, during COVID.
So ironically enough, today is the 20th anniversary of Facebook. And if you remember, before Facebook, there were some other competitors like Orkut.
Yeah,
We were all
Yahoo's
on Orkut,
360, yeah.
but all of a sudden, Facebook became number one. So I think a component of determinism and just chance is involved in.
Absolutely, yeah, no, absolutely. Chance is involved, but that's not the main. So I'd say probably 20% is chance, 10 or 20%, yeah. You gotta have it clear. Another example is, what was the name of the company that used to sell video? They have like a Blockbuster, exactly. You see how Netflix, that the idea of Netflix was basically coming, from Blockbuster, like 20, 30 years ago, where they basically wanted the guy, start introducing, hey, let's rent online, right? And said, no, we're a Blockbuster. Everybody knows us. We're one of the big, giant company. 20, 30 years flash forward. If you go back to 90s, right, and then talk to someone and say Blockbuster will not exist 20 years from now, 30 years from now, everybody will laugh at you. That's basically adaptability, right? They haven't pivoted towards something that is really, really needed for their business. There's hundreds of examples like this.
May I ask your definition about the chance?
Chance?
Yes.
So chance is something that you probably, just to be clear about the chance. Chance is something that you create yourself, right? Chance is not gonna knock on your door. You basically put yourself on the path of success, right? And something that you think, is gonna help you, drive towards your goal, and then the chance comes itself.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And today is one of those days.
Today is one of those days.
It's actually very funny when you're talking about chance, because I also having, my startup, like what is that, event management. I don't know, like a few days ago, I heard that Eventbrite is now charging if you're over 25 people, which is a great opportunity for me, right? Because when they're charging, I'm not charging, of course I have a, what is that? Like it's a hand, what do you call it? Like leverage. Yeah, that's actually, just a chance. Like it just happened a few weeks ago, which is great.
Yeah.
It's a good example of contingency, what other people do and how they influence
Exactly.
your business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Actually, thank you. I have just one question regarding one of the statistics which you just mentioned about the 90% of the startups, they have failure or something like that. Since actually we are working with the entrepreneurs, so I am very curious about the basic, the base of those information.
Running out of cash.
Sorry?
Running out of cash.
Yes. Okay, yes, I know. But actually the real case is, for just checking, was it success or failure? There are some criteria. For example, the ROI is less than that. Maybe you could not reach your goal during these 2 or 3 years or something like that. But actually most of them, according to my research, it says, most of them are the guys who are following afterwards. So they will go to the next step. But under that criteria, they fail. But actually they are continuing somehow in less condition or something like that, Is it correct or not? Because
Yeah.
You got my point?
Yeah.
So actually that 90% is not actually the real failure.
Yeah. Might be.
They are continuing. Okay.
Yeah.
It was just a comment which I just wanted to tell you.
Well, I tell you, running startup is not easy, right? I mean, I haven't shared yet this. During COVID, when COVID hit, and obviously we were going bankrupt, right? I mean, we were like almost 9 months, in our ideation phase. What happened was, okay, we had to pivot towards something that is related and we could survive. So me, back in the time I was with Siemens, I had like a full-time job. So sometimes I have taken, 15 meetings, and I'm not joking. You might say this guy is bragging about 15 meetings a day. It's almost impossible. I fired up my computer at 7:30 a.m. and run my computer up until 4 a.m. non-stop. So my wife said, "You're gonna kill yourself if you drive this. It's not gonna be sustainable." Yes, I mean, you have nothing as your foundation of your company. You have to build marketing collaterals, you have to build brochures, you have to build presentation, you have to work on your pitch, you have to work on what are you going to basically impress your clients, your potential prospects with what you're doing. But this is something that every startup has, right? You look into Facebook, you look into Amazon. I love, Jeff Bezos, when he basically shows, that little, tiny room that he started 25, 30 years ago. We're basically, talking about the idea. And he said he pitched to 80 investors, right, to fund $1 million, and only 50 out of 80 or 150, something like that, that basically he pitched to 50 or 80, investors, and only 20 of them basically, invested, in his company to make it, to $1 million that he needed almost 30 years ago, which is a lot. Every VCs, the due diligence for the VCs and the investors, to understand your market, and there is a risk. Your VC might back up, your competitor, right? So it's very tricky that what you have to share and what you have to not share when you're talking to the VC. So I'd say the failure comes from the 90%. I'm not sure, how accurate it is, because that's really a general number, right? But what I'm saying is, when you have the idea and you start the company, you register the company, all that, there is a high chance that you can fail if you do not follow certain guidelines, basically, in your business plan. So,
Thank you so much.
Sure.
How would you like to comment on Jack Ma? He doesn't know technology. When he created Alibaba, he was an English teacher. But how likely the chance of today he will be success? So what's the the critical factors, tech or mindsets for nowadays? You think for kind of the line of business success?
Absolutely. So a businessman should be capable of taking risk, right? So you don't necessarily need to be scientist. You need to have scientists on board to run your business and basically deploy your idea. But you could be the center of idea generation. So the idea generates in your head, but you don't know how to implement it. That's why you have team members. You bring them on board, and in order to deploy your idea. So Jack Ma is very smart. So what he has done, he disrupted, the whole industry when it comes to the sourcing of product. And you see, the Amazon is almost living off of, what he has done. Amazon today probably couldn't be Amazon that it is today without what he has done, in the past 5 to 10 years.
Okay, thanks, Fazal John. I think we are running out of the time.
Yeah.
So hopefully you and Omi-John will stay here in the open networking, and you can answer the questions if just in case if others have any questions.
Sure.
So we had, I believe we had a great presentation by Omid and Farzad. Would you agree with me, guys?
Excellent.
And we are the first persons who made the cousin engagement between these two persons.
Yeah.
So we have to prize.
We were connected on LinkedIn and we were working, but we never had the opportunity to meet in person. So.
Yeah, Technonet was a good
Yes.
reason to connect these two persons together after long time.
Yes.
3-4 years.
Yeah, 3-4 years.
So what
Yeah.
was the cousin?
We are
Because you didn't see each
undiscovered cousin.
No.
We are undiscovered
We
cousin.
made the cousin engagement. Okay, thank you.
23andMe, so you check it out.
23andMe. Oh, I've done 23andMe. Have you done 23andMe?
So we
It
have
is like it's a DNA test. So maybe you do the DNA test and you become.
yeah, the DNA test. Okay, thanks, Farzad.
Thanks.
So we have the rest of the game. So please go back to your phones. So we want to continue this game to find for the last 3 winners. But before we go through this test, so as I told you, we have on March 9, we have a great gathering, and we need more volunteers, sponsors. If you want to be volunteers, sponsors, or you know anybody who wants to help us in this regard, please let us know. So if you don't, so we will come to your house, knock on your door, and so take you out of the house for the voluntary job. Okay, thank you. So next question. What is a common challenge faced by startups in securing funding? Lack of innovation ideas, difficulty in finding skilled employees, limited access to capital, excessive government regulations. Red. Cheating. Good. Right answer, one. Excessive government regulations. I told you to hit on the green, but you didn't listen to me. Next. So, Farzad is the first one.
I just answered correctly, but I'm on the second one. How does the algorithm work?
Fast timing.
Oh, it's a matter of time as well.
Yes.
But anyways, you will be in the first 3 winners, and you have to be volunteer over next year.
Oh, is that it?
Which factor often poses a challenge for startups in the earliest stages of development? Established brand reputation, high customer demand, limited resources, robust market competition. Don't ask ChatGPT, guys.
No.
Number, so 5, yeah, number yellow. Okay, next question and the last. So Farzad is the first, Masi second. Ali Reza.
I'm disconnected. It is connected.
What is a key obstacle for startups when trying to establish a strong market presence? Okay, so lack of brand recognition. Let's see who is the winner. Farzad is the first. Masi, FF. Who is FF? Oh, yeah. Okay, let's see who are the first 3 winners. Oh, this is the last question. Will you attend Technonet Expo number 1?
Yes.
If you say false, you will get negative one. And if you say true, you have to come. So make your decision. You have time. 15 seconds. If you hit true, you have to be volunteer.
There's no maybe.
There is no maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, one person not coming.
Just kidding.
FF, the first, third person, Masi, second person, and Farzad.
Well, I cheated. I don't
Oh,
Those are my questions.